we all want to lead our project successfully. However, the first thing we learned in project is how to justify that they are delayed. Certain enterprises, certain ideas, certain ventures, certain projects, we do not even expect them to be ready or finished on time. When we hear about a new railway, a new freeway, a new motorway, or a new subway to be built, and we hear it's going to be ready approximately in year 2023, no one of us expects that this is going to be on time. However, free enterprise isn't doing much better. It's not only the public hand messing this up, and the public hand often messing it up because people sue the public hand left, right, and center. Maybe you know these people who like to move into the center of a city and then they sue anyone over anything because they say it's too noisy. What kind of amazing logic. And we now have to see, how do we lead project in today's times under the new circumstances? Because what happens right now is projects, which I see, are led like before the pandemic. So people just pretend nothing ever happened. They think nothing ever changed. The whole concept of work from home, work from anywhere, people just think, oh yeah, someone is temporarily at home or does a bit from home. You know, we had that before, and this is factually not correct. We didn't have before what we have right now. So teams often enter the new projects completely unprepared. Non-prepared, they are not ready for what happens in the so-called new normal. And by the way, talking about being ready for projects, I really had an amazing interview yesterday with someone who leads international projects in more than 80 countries. Marc Amerigo, based in France, so someone with a nice accent, not with a German accent like I have. So Marc Amerigo led projects in many countries, including projects that led to world records. He's an international engineer. So he does not have virtual products. These products are products you can physically touch. They have to be delivered physically and they have to work physically. And as they are used by humans, when something goes wrong, humans get harmed. So he must deliver a really spot-on, cutting-edge, record-breaking result. And that's what he does. This is why I interviewed him so on the English podcast yesterday. You can hear an amazing interview with Marc Amerigo. And on the German podcast, I interviewed a legend from the German market, Klaus Fink, a sales legend. So if you really are into German sales and you're able to speak German, look into the German podcast as well, please. But now we have to look at what are the problems in today's not in today's podcast, no. What are the problems in today's projects and how can we do better? The first, and I deliberately say problem here, not challenge, not opportunity, because I'm not a motivational, inspirational, chumbawamba person. We have to face reality. We face problems. And if we look into these problems, the first one is that the social connection between people changes dramatically, and it will change in the future. The first change you already see when you look into the younger generation. Most of us were still prone and used to having social connections personally. So you meet. The younger the generation gets, you see the more virtual contact they have. This has upsides and downsides. So I'm not saying that it's all great. I don't say it's the perfect solution, but we have more and more people who you only will know virtually. And we have companies, especially last week, I interviewed Frederick Mittelstedt on the German podcast, and I interviewed him a couple of weeks before on the English podcast. He's an engineering manager from Reddit. Reddit, very successful, located in Silicon Valley. So some people live in San Francisco, basically on their doorstep. Other people live in London, others in Berlin, others in Moscow, others in Japan, others in Perth or Sydney. So you have a global spanning network of where people live working in the same project. And the social connectivity, the social connection between people changes dramatically. So don't pretend that you can lead a project like you led it before. Of course, the culture and the approach to conflict and communication is completely different. And you shouldn't just say, oh, we're going to check this on the job and then see how it works out. This has a high risk of failure. It's pretty much a recipe for disaster. You need to check before you go somewhere. How do you do, so not only how do you get to your goal, but also how do you lead on the way to getting there? And as I see that often these new team structures are not communicated, suddenly people just start working again. Anyone pretends nothing has happened before and they just keep on moving. And the main message senior leaders or executives send here is they simply say, pretty much, could we please move on now and get back to work? And I really can understand that emotionally. I can understand that many of us reach the end of our tether because now we have a solution with a vaccine, and some people deny it, and then it's not available anywhere where it should be, etc. So we get to the point where we say we have some people who deliberately make it more difficult than it has to be. So can we just move on now? But just move on now never was a sustainable concept. Just move on now always meant there are certain things you don't see, there are certain things you don't realize, and they will catch up with you in due course of every single project you do. And of course, we have to see how to do it better. And there are different approaches before we look into the details. Of course, with workshops, training, seminars, consulting, mentoring, you can help a lot. Coaching is very helpful for people. Professional speakers at your events can help you to get the attention, the awareness to this specific aspect. And with project and interim management by external people, you also can get a fresh external view. And if you're interested in that, just drop me an email to nb@nb-networks.com. nb@nb-networks.com. And also I have to thank you very much for the positive feedback of the last weeks again, especially about the written resources I also present every week. If you go to expert.nb-networks.com, expert.nb-networks.com, just put your email in there. Every Wednesday you get you get an email, and this email has a podcast, articles, additional resources, video casts, and there will be even more in the future. I'm not going to spoil here, but we are now at the 190th edition of the Expert Excellence Weekly Send Out. So we are close to 200, and there will be a major announcement, especially for our frequent readers, with edition number 200. So look forward to that, because there is something coming up which will be very helpful for you. So now we have to look into how to do it better. So how to do it better. Step number one is you need social events online and offline. It's not easy, but necessary. It can pay off that you sometimes say, we now do a social event and we fly you all together to one location. Simply that you meet people, get to know people, have a bit of social events, not only focused on facts and figures and Excel spreadsheets and Gantt diagrams where you look at different projects or workshops you do, but also having just a bit of fun together, motivation together. But of course, always be aware that this not only is a lot of time effort, it's also quite costly. It can pay off quickly, but also please be aware that we have to take care that we don't put an unnecessary burden on the climate. And many events on the environment, that's the right word. And many events can be held online when you do them professionally. Unfortunately, I often hear that people say, oh, we have internal speakers, which means someone from finance, someone from HR, someone from project, someone from senior leadership. They all give very well polished and totally over-prepared presentations, completely over-engineered presentations, which are so stiff, so non-spontaneous, so non-interactive, and so fake that no one listens to you. They just sit there and they are just happy when you are actually done with what you wanted to present. So you need professionally organized online events. And of course, when you have work from home, work from anywhere approaches in your organization, and I highly recommend, when it's possible with your organization, offer it. But of course, don't make other people's life choices your personal problem. I'll just give you an example. When I talked to Frederick Middlestead, I interviewed him, as I mentioned before. I know him privately as well. So when I was at his place for dinner with his husband, and we sat there, and suddenly at 10 p.m. he said, I now have to go upstairs because there's a meeting which I have to attend. And that, of course, is one consequence of him deciding to work for Reddit, but he wanted to keep on living in London and not move to the United States. And when people make this decision, that's perfectly fine. But of course, you will never be able to tell people every single minute you work is the most comfortable time, while at the same time you travel the world. That is not possible. So be sure that people's personal life choices do not become your unnecessary problem. You offer great salaries, great opportunities, great education, great training, great coaching. Anything you offer is great. But when people then come up with their personal life choices, that's their investment. That is their part of the investment. So you don't have to stick and say, oh, we are in the US and now we have to find a time which is suitable for anyone from pretty much Los Angeles via London, Berlin, Moscow to Tokyo and Sydney, because that time zone doesn't exist. When you are a US-based business and people say, I signed up to work for a US-based business, the meetings are oriented in US time zones. And that's not nationalist, that's just perfectly reasonable, because the vast majority of the people working there will work in the United States. If not, you can still change. And when you have regional project groups which work in different time zones, perfect, they can organize themselves. But don't make people's personal life choices your unnecessary problem. When you then have your new team structures, communicate these team structures. So you get them communicated so people know what's the new deal. And also you have to check regularly, do they properly work? Because what does work and what does not work, especially with the new normal, there are a couple of things that we know they work. For example, working from home, that's not even new. Work from home is something which was offered 20 years ago. So welcome to 2021 when you just joined that train. If you have something which is really new, work from anywhere concepts, etc., then you will know in due course of doing your project if it's working. And you should always and frequently check if it's working properly and then adjust the rules. The worst option is always when you have this silence of decision making. No one talks about something because they all see the problem, but no one wants to talk about it because they fear that when they address the issue, they have it on their table and they have to deal with it. So never have this communicative silence, because what people will do then is people make their own choices. They make their own choices, their own decisions and their own rules. And these rules often do not stick to what you want them to do. So be very aware that check what works, check what does not work, and then make decisions. Clear decisions, unambiguous decisions, and then communicate them properly. Because the focus at the end of every project is you want to have the result done. So being focused, a result-oriented approach with a very clear focus to know every stakeholder means you have a perfect result and every stakeholder satisfied. And that, of course, is what we are all looking for. It is now very important, especially when we talk about projects. I mean, on the German podcast, I told you Klaus Finker interviewed. He has done more projects than most people of us will do in their whole life. That's the experience this man has. But especially the English podcast, Mark Amerigo is a truly global leader in international projects. So I can really tell you, he will give you insights you probably will not have thought about. And also, I told you before, he's French, so it's an interview with a nice accent, not with a German accent like I have. So it is enjoyable, I can tell you. So it is now very important that you go into the active discussion in your organization. I'm happy to have discussions with you as well. The last weeks were really great. Even the ones who did not agree, we had very respectful discussions, phone calls, meetings. Just send me an email, nb@nb-networks.com. nb@nb-networks.com, and then we have a chat. And now it is very important that you apply what you heard in this podcast, because only what you apply in your organization, only what you apply in your business will get a relevance. I wish you all the best implementing this in your organization. I'm happy to chat with you. Just drop me an email and we take it from there. But for now, there's only one thing for me left to say. Thank you very much for your time.